Hey folks, how's it going? Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to our weekly id Invaded discussion series here on the channel, and today we're going to be talking all about episode 4 Extended. But before we get into that though, I do as always want to give a big thank you to those of you who shared last week's video over on Twitter. At Foxton2X, at Bubblelubber, at Zyphery, and at Blue Rose Enigma. Thank you all so much for sharing last week's video over on Twitter, and if you too would like to have your name shouted out in next week's Invaded video, then be sure to share this video around on the internet, and then tag me at JoJo Talks Too Much over on Twitter, and I will be shouting out the first handful of you in next week's video. Now with that said, what do you say we dig into this week's episode, shall we? And on that note, I have two things in particular that I really want to talk about. Well, it's kind of more like four, but two of them are sort of like one and dones, and we'll actually talk a little bit about those quick two little like side notes. And unfortunately, both of them are relatively negative, so let's just go ahead and knock these ones out of the way. There is something about the show that I have noticed in this episode in particular. I noticed it a wee bit last week, but I didn't bring it up because it didn't really bug me necessarily. It was something I noticed, but here it was enough that I felt I should address it, because otherwise I feel like I want to share my full thoughts in these discussions, right? Because they're not really reviews, they're just sort of my opinions on the show week by week, and they're not even really episodic reviews, they're just sort of how I'm feeling about the show, where the fandom is at the time, and of course what the episode was up to this week. But that said, I do think it's important to give my honest opinions, and one of my opinions, and it's not, I'm hyping it up like it's a big deal. It's not a super big deal. It's just something that I noticed, and that is the character designs. The character designs I really like. I think they're really sharp and they're really unique, but for some reason, and I don't know why it was this episode in particular where I really noticed it, but a lot of characters went off model. And now normally I'm not the kind of guy who complains about that, but I will complain if I can't help but notice that they're going wildly off model, and when it's at times where the characters aren't really doing anything exceptionally animated, when the characters are just standing around talking and they look off model. Yeah, that's probably gonna get my attention. Now mind you, it's not like the characters look downright awful or anything. They still look fine. It's just I noticed that they were kind of off model, and I can usually forgive that, but the thing is, the person in charge of the character design and chief animation director happen to be the same person. Now, for most anime, that's pretty standard. The person who's going to be in charge of the character design obviously knows the character designs the best and can keep the animators on model, hence why they end up being the chief animation director, basically just going over everybody's work to make sure that the characters look right. That's not uncommon, and it's the same thing with id Invaded. And I'm not an unreasonable dude. I'm willing to let a lot of stuff go. However, if it's somebody whose work I know is particularly good, then yeah, I'm gonna be a little bit disappointed if their work goes off model or just in general isn't quite living up to the standard I feel like they've set for themselves. And I can't help but look at Atsushi Ikaria's previous work and think that they could be doing a little bit better. I do think they were kinda slacking in this week's episode. And I don't say that lightly because, again, their work is great. They were the character designer on Fate Zero and Unlimited Blade Works, working with Aoki in the past, as well as being a character designer on Devil is a Part-Timer, and they were the chief animation director on Devil is a Part-Timer. So I know that they've done both of these roles before and done it relatively well. I haven't finished Devil is a Part-Timer, but I did enjoy a heck of a lot of what I saw from it, in particular the art. And I mean, Fate, it's Fate. You already know it looks great. And I don't gotta be the one to tell you that. The character designs are fantastic. Same thing with Devil is Part-Timer. So I know that this creator can keep things on model, since from what I remember about Devil is a Part-Timer, the characters were relatively on model for most of it. I only saw the first, I think, 3 episodes. But I am just, like I noted, it's the Fate Zero of it all. The Fate Zero and Unlimited Blade Works of everything that kind of catches my eye, especially Blade Works. I haven't finished Zero, but I have finished Blade Works, and I love Unlimited Blade Works. It's one of my favorite shows ever. So the fact that I know that this creator can bring it, it kind of bummed me out to see the character designs going off model. Now, that's not entirely their fault. The animators should maybe be trying to be a little bit more on model, but that's usually where the chief animation director comes in, to sort of do some touch-ups, make sure everybody's character models are looking on point, make sure that the anime has a specific look and that they keep to it. So I'm not, like, again, I'm not mad. I'm not even disappointed. Like, I'm not going to pull the, I'm not mad. I'm just disappointed. I'm not. It's just something I noticed last week. I didn't say anything. This week, I did say something. If it continues into the week prior, I may have more of an issue with it, but I'm kind of willing to let this one slide with just like something I noticed, like maybe work on that. The other big thing that I have to note, and again, it's a nitpick. This one's a little bit less, since I do actually have a feeling this will be fixed going forward, but it's just, again, something I noticed, and I'm always going to be honest with you guys, even if it is a little bit negative, and that is that I really, really need to see a little bit more character development for the team working on the Mizuhaname, because I feel like we don't know a whole heck of a lot about them, and they're given enough screen time that I feel like we should know a lot about them. Not a lot, but we should know them as characters. As an example, I really want to know about the other guy working in the Mizuhaname crew who seems to be like trying to out-detective Sakaido, and I want to know more about that character. I want to know more about his buddy that he's constantly like bouncing ideas off of. I want to know more about the female detective who works with Monaki, and I just want to know more about Monaki as well. Hondamachi and Matsuoka are the two that I feel like we know the best out of that crew. And Momoki, sorry, I said Monoki, I meant Momoki, is a character whose name I just wrote down for the first time. I didn't even know what this dude's name was. And that's something that I have, like I said, I have a feeling the show is going to fix down the line, as I assume we'll probably get to know these characters a little bit more piece by piece. But it's not really their story, it's Sakaido's story, so I understand why they're not given as much attention, but I do feel like we're on to episode 4 now, so we should know a little bit more about these characters. It feels like it's only episode 3 because we got that 2-parter, where they played episode 1 and 2 back to back. So I understand why they did that, because I feel like by the time we get to episode 4, we really should know more about the Mizuhaname crew. Even the fact that I had been referring to them as the Mizuhaname crew when they actually have a name, I think it's like Kura or something, and I had no idea. I just kept calling them the Mizuhaname crew. The Mizuhaname is the name of the system in place to make ID wells, and I didn't even know that. I just kept calling them the Mizuhaname crew, and even though their name is something else. We need to know more about them. I don't care if we don't know much about the Mizuhaname, since it's basically magic. I know that it's sci-fi, and I know blah blah blah. Most sci-fi to me, I don't really care about the techno jargon. You can just be like, this is a technological feat, and it does blah blah blah. How does it do that? Nah. I'd be like, cool, whatever. I don't need to know the inner workings of the machine. I need to know the people operating the machine. So again, I have a feeling they're gonna fix that. I want to know more about them, and I only want to know more about them because I am engaged with what I've seen from them. So again, it's not really a knock. It's not even really it's much more of a nitpick than it is an actual complaint. Now, with that said, we got 2 other things we got to talk about in regards to this week's episode. First of all, we got Fukada becoming, what is his name? What is the name they gave him? Anaido? Becoming a detective in the Mizuhaname. Okay. And then the other thing is, of course, the Gravedigger case itself, which is the biggest takeaway for me from the thing. But before we get into the Gravedigger case, I just gotta talk about this. Okay, so Fukada, you guys may not know the name, but you may know him as the Driller Killer from the previous, from the first episode. Fukada becomes a detective, super briefly. I can't tell if they're going to continue working with him, since, how many times did they send this poor SOB into this friggin' well? I don't know why I'm calling him poor SOB, he's murdered people, but they sent him into the Mizuhaname, and he dove into 70 wells, 10 times each, for 3 days. Yes, Miguel, for 3 whole days. And I'm not gonna lie to you guys, when we saw the sort of spinny waterfall place again. I was like, what are we doing in this dude's well again? I thought he was like super dead, and he is, but the thing is they were actually testing Fukada's ability to work as a great detective. In the Mizuhaname, Fukada became a Naido in the same way that Sakaido's, I just realized that rhymes. In the same way, Sakaido's name is different when he goes into the well. Well, he becomes Sakaido. His name is something different in the real world, but I don't care because his name in the well is cooler. And for the rest of this series, I will not be referring to Fukada as a Naido because I just don't want to overly complicate things, so Fukada it is. And my man was in there looking like he bought an outfit at Spirit Halloween like right after Halloween ended. Like my dude was in there looking like a discount Dracula. that detective outfit, what even was that, my guy? Like that thing looked you just don't look as cool as Sakaido. You don't look as cool as Sakaido in real life. You don't look as cool as Sakaido in the ID well, or the id well. Sorry, I just realized I've been calling it ID well. I meant to say id well. See, I'm still doing it, even after last week's whole thing. Anyway, you just don't look as cool. Like, bottom line, that's what it is. Like, when I saw him, I couldn't help but feel like he basically looked like he walked off of an Otome game. Like, the way that character looked. He looked like he walked out of, like, a vampire Otome game. And I was like, what the hell is that? It is so jarring. Because at the very least, Sakaido looks like a modern-day detective. Whereas Fukada, when he went into the Idwell, he looked like an old-school, like, Victorian-era detective, but specifically a Victorian-era detective in an anime. Like, and that's not a knock. It's an anime, but I'm just saying, like, it looked really weird. And that's not a bad thing. It's the Idwell. It's meant to be a representation of a human being's id. It's supposed to be off the wall zany and ridiculous looking. And that's not to say that Sakaido's outfit isn't ridiculous looking either. I mean, my man's got a scarf that would make Joseph Joestar blush. It looked very theatrical, is what I'm trying to say. Now, I'm gonna take that as a compliment. Some people might take that as an insult, but I meant it as a compliment. And the other big thing with Fukada entering the Idwell is that they established that this, like I said, this man jumped into 7 wells, 10 times each, for 3 days, 3 whole days, and at no point did he end up lasting very long. Like, apparently he just is not as well suited to be a great detective within the Mizuhaname as Sakaido is. So I don't know if they're going to continue to use him, since we see later on a scene just before Sakaido dives into the quote-unquote Gravedigger's Idwell, and we'll get there. But as he's going there, Fukada gives him the smirk, and this is in reality, by the way. This is already going to get confusing. So Fukada glances at Sakaido and kind of smirks at him and just says, like, see you later, senpai. And I was like, are we really doing this? Is this where the show is going? He's gonna have like an underling? He's gonna have a partner? Oh my gosh. I'm genuinely down for that. I kinda wanna see it. I kinda wanna see Fukada and Sakaido like working on a case in an Idwell together. If that happens, I'm gonna be kinda stoked. Because again, those outfits are ridiculous. Both of them have ridiculous outfits, but these two like anime as hell looking detectives solving a case within this crazy setting, like, yes, dude, sign me up. That sounds awesome. And yes, I know Fukada killed people. He's a bad person. I get it. But, like, I still want to see it. But speaking of bad dudes, we got to talk about the Gravedigger case. And this is the crux of the episode, and it is, without a doubt, the most unsettling... Well, I shouldn't say... Because I was going to say the most unsettling case of the show thus far, but let's just be real, that's not true, is it? I mean, it kind of is, though. Like, when you think about it, I have 2 big fears, and one of them is depth, which I'm not going to get into, and I know depth is weird. Maybe we'll talk about that in a Q&A someday, but yeah, one of them is depth, and the other one is darkness. I don't like not being able to see my surroundings, and there was this one time I sat down to watch a little movie with Ryan Reynolds in it, called Buried, and that movie gave me a whole new fear because it combined my fear of darkness with the fear of being buried under the ground. And the only thing that could make that worse is if a bunch of people got to watch me slowly die. That is terrifying, and that is what the Gravedigger does, and that shit is spooky. What's even more unsettling is the amount of people that were watching the damn thing. Also, where was that streaming? But regardless, the amount of people who end up watching this Gravedigger stream of this poor girl was, I think, like 100,000 views, like concurrent viewers for a stream. That is unsettling and creepy on so many levels, but like that whole idea is fascinating, right? In today's world, especially in a show that's as sci-fi as Id Invaded is, the idea of somebody like live streaming their kills, quote unquote, is really friggin' creepy, man. And it's a fascinating idea. It's unsettling as hell. It just made me uncomfortable the whole way through, and you really wanted to see them save this girl, and that's what makes the end of the episode all the more crushing. The fact that the team doesn't make it, that they don't get there in time, and this poor friggin' girl dies. They straight up pull like a Saw 2, spoilers for Saw 2, where it was all a recording, and it's like, damn, like that's heartbreaking. Because when once they found the dude, a part of me is like, they're not gonna make it. Because like when they showed her like breathing all weird, and the dude was like watching the stream, for some reason I just had a feeling. I'm like, I didn't know that it was a recording. I'm not gonna be like, oh, I called it. I didn't call it, but I was like, they're not gonna make it. I just had that feeling of like, they're not gonna make it. And yeah, man, they didn't. It was a recording the whole time. I don't know why he would do that. And again, like they do, well, I do know why, because they straight up established like it's like hiding a leaf in a forest. Like that's because the guy who killed this poor girl was not actually the Gravedigger. It was just some dude using the Gravedigger motif, a copycat, to kill this poor girl. And it was like some dude who knew this girl. I'm not even gonna, like, I don't really know what the connection was. I'm not gonna pretend like I do. I didn't even write it down because I was just so friggin' heartbroken that they didn't make it in time. And the fact that Sakaido was also clearly torn up about that. It really challenges that idea that the chief in charge, like the head dude in charge of the Mizuhaname crew, the fact that he had even said, like, I question whether or not Sakaido's concern for human life, his need to save people, if that's even still in there. It clearly is. I brought that up last week. Like, the dude can't help himself. His id is, his instinctual need is to save people. So the fact that he saved the girl in the Idwell, but she died in reality, that clearly affected Sakaido. And that scene is great too, because we get that scene between him and Momoki, where Momoki questions him and sort of drills him a little bit, and it ends with Momoki saying, like, one more question. Do you still view me as a friend? And Sakaido laughs and says, like, you're probably the last thing tethering me to any sense of sanity. And that, I don't know why, but like the end of the episode, because you thinking like the whole time, like, yeah, they're gonna save the day, because like the Idwell itself is like this like action-packed, like there's explosions going on, there's fire, like these buildings are shifting around, it's all cool and crazy. There's even like this cool like insert song where it's like we can go like a samurai, like that whole song was going. I was like, yeah. And this awesome little action scene, they actually purposely kill Sakaido a bunch to make you worry that he's not going to make it this time. So, or not that he won't make it, but just that he'll die again on this one run where he's doing really well. So they actually built up the tension really, really well in that action scene. And the fact that they have the insert song and he gets there in time and he gets the girl and she's safe and he like whisks her away. And even after they find out she's already dead in reality, he's still in the process of saving her within the Idwell. It's just so well done. And it just breaks my heart, and friggin' dang it, Aoki, man, why you gotta break my heart like this? I don't know if I want to blame Aoki as a director or if I want to blame Maijo as the series composer. I don't know who to blame. I don't know to blame the writer or the director. All I know is I am hurt emotionally, and the ending was weird, but I'll save that for next week. On that note though, everybody, I'm gonna wrap up my thoughts here, and I'm gonna give this week's episode a super solid B tier. Again, I thought this was a really good time. This is probably my favorite of the mind-screwy shows this season, though if you want something a little bit darker, I would recommend Pet. As you can tell by the fact that I have not talked about Pet in about 2 weeks, you can tell that I'm not the biggest fan of Pet. I like my mind-screwy shows to be a little bit more clean, a little less insane, but still kind of mind-bendy, and that's what Id Invaded does for me. This continues to be one of my more favorite shows this season. And that's going to do it for today's video, everybody, so I hope you guys enjoyed, and before we go, as always, I have to give a big big thank you to the good folks over on Patreon, especially those in the Earl Grey tier: Andrew W., Calvin A., Crowbar of Irony, Daniel G., Digger the Fox, Dominic G., Ionos, Urza, Ginkutaku, Godzilla Fan, No For Nothing, Maria Teresa, Marshall B., Mirth Mouser, Cell, Shadow Creative, Sipco Games, Somastan, Stephen G., Sakochi, Tristan G., and Verdon. A huge thank you to all of you in the T Squadron for your continued support, and if you too would like to join the T Squadron, then be sure to check out the first link in the description to check out our Patreon page, see all the cool rewards you can get over there, as well as access to our Patreon exclusive Discord for as little as $1 a month. And with that said, we're gonna wrap up today's video, everybody, so thank you all once again for watching, and if you are feeling stressed out today, then you go have yourself a warm cup of tea, and I will talk to you all again real soon.